Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and I wanted to say hi. And I'm dialing in from New York. I'm here for, in case you want to know why, I'm shooting a movie for Financial Lovemaking, which is a book that I wrote. And I'm also going to go see a play called Sisters, which I hope is going to be really good. And I'm going to do some stuff with my daughter, and then I'm going to go hang out with Charlemagne the Guide over on the Breakfast Club on Monday, and then I'm gonna head on back and get ready for a trip to Europe. And so there's a lot of traveling going on, and when I travel, I tend to think a lot. That's when I do most of my thinking. And one of the things I was thinking about this week was this movie that my daughter and I are pretty excited about. We're actually gonna go see the movie Straight Outta Compton. We're gonna go tomorrow, probably during the like middle of the day, so we can beat all the crowds. And it's funny, with my daughter being excited about this film. My daughter was born in 1989. That was when I was a senior in high school, and so she was not even an infant when NWA first emerged on the scene. I still remember in 1987, 88, first time I heard Ice Cube. Literally, his voice was so overpowering in the music that it literally rattled me. I was 17. I was like, I ain't never heard nothing like this. Because before NWA, hip hop was totally different. Gangster rap just kind of jumped onto the scene, and for us as teenagers, it was really cool. It was very exciting. It was like, man, these guys are speaking some real shit. This is some over the top type stuff, and so I loved NWA. I mean, that was my favorite group. Easy E, NWA, Ice Cube, all of that. I followed the whole beef in the early '90s. I know damn near everything about everything that was going on with them. I remember the DOC, who was I think was on track to be what Snoop Dogg eventually became. And I remember Michelle A. and then another group called Compton's Most Wanted, and then DJ Quick and all that came out of the West Coast. I mean, there was a time when the West Coast seemed to really control hip hop, and they really changed the direction of the ship of hip hop. Not so much in a good way though. I mean, you know, that's the funny thing too. That's what's interesting. I remember I had a debate with Killer Mike about this. He and I were talking. Killer Mike is a smart dude, real smart guy, and we were talking about NWA. Now I know he's down with Dre and Cube and all that. So there's certain things that he's not going to be able to say or not going to want to say about NWA and what happened with gangster rap. But I just call it as I see it. And as somebody who loved NWA, who loved Ice Cube, who loved Snoop, Dr. Dre, all of that. I can also look back now as a 40-something-year-old man and kind of look at what that music did to hip hop. Now, here's the thing. I don't think NWA is the cause of everything that's wrong with hip hop, because they were simply a mirror reflecting the life that they were living. I think that gangster rap really was a reflection of the CIA's effort to destroy the black community with drugs and weapons. Black people don't make guns, we don't make drugs, but yet somehow miraculously both of those things appeared in our community suddenly in extreme supply. They didn't suddenly appear in Beverly Hills. They didn't suddenly appear in the middle of Iowa. They suddenly appeared in South Central Los Angeles. And Freeway Ricky Ross, who was one of the most notorious drug dealers during the 1980s, when he and I talked about this, he was talking about how he got his years in prison. I think he got 13 years. Another drug dealer that I know of from Chicago named Mario Lloyd, who's also from the 80s. They gave him 15 life sentences. He didn't have any murders on his record or anything like that. They got him on a RICO charge, so they incarcerated him. They incarcerated his mother, his brother, and his sister. And Mario's still in prison to this day. But at the same time, Freeway Ricky Ross, who the fat Rick Ross stole his name, by the way, which I think is just deplorable. But Rick Ross told me, he said he didn't understand why he got so many years, but his Colombian connect, the person who's bringing billions of dollars of cocaine into the country, only got 13 months or 18 months or some ridiculously low sentence. And a lot of that was because many of these guys were connected to the CIA. The CIA was allowing these drugs into black communities. So when I look at NWA, I see NWA really in what they were rapping about. They were teenagers rapping about what they saw. They didn't see peace and love and and happiness and all these things. If they'd seen those things, I think that's what they would have rapped about. They would have rapped about normal experiences. But when you're 16 or 15 or 14 and you have friends that have been gunned down with AK-47s, it's very difficult to go out and rap about flowers and sunshine and happiness. So I don't blame NWA for what happened with hip hop, but at the same time, NWA's music certainly shaped hip hop. I see many artists that we see out here today that are the biggest artists in the country. To me, they're like ideological or musical grandchildren of of NWA. You know, out of NWA came stuff like Snoop Dogg, Death Row Records. Suge Knight pretty much controlled the world at one point. I feel bad this brother threw it all away. But you know, Death Row Records, and then you know, you got Dr. Dre, which leads to Eminem, 50 Cent, etc. Then you move into Lil Wayne and Ti, and then you move into what you have today. And I feel like all that's connected. You know, even Drake, who's at the top of the game now, came out of Lil Wayne's label. I feel like Lil Wayne's music came out. I know it's out of the South, but I feel like that whole gangster rap kind of persona kind of encompassed all of hip hop. It kind of pushed out a lot of East Coast rappers and all that stuff. But again, I'm not a pure hip hop historian. My boy Vigilante out of Kansas City, that's the real hip hop historian who should be talking about this. But I'm speaking as a black man here. Now, here's what. Well, you know, some issues I might see in terms of the NWA movie. I think that because this group was prominent back 25 years ago. A lot of people that are going to see this movie, they were either not alive when the group was out, or they were so young they don't really remember it. And I think that sometimes we tend to over romanticize things when we weren't really there to really see the reality. Like Tupac, everybody thinks Tupac and Biggie were the greatest rappers of all time. Nobody can question whether that not they were better than them. And to me, they were just, you know, they were good artists. They were great artists at their time. I listened to them like everybody else, but I see artists today that are just as good to me. I mean, I see a lot of artists that are good over time. I think something happens when somebody's dead or when there's just an old story where you weren't around. We tend to think that it was so perfect, so wonderful, so amazing that nothing today could ever compare to it. I don't agree. I think that what you see with Drake is an amazing artist. Drake knows how to make really good music. I think even Lil Wayne, a guy I've criticized tremendously, is a brilliant artist. Immortal Technique is a brilliant artist. D1 is a brilliant artist. There are a whole lot of brilliant rappers. Tech Nine, all amazing. So I'm not saying that, you know, it's a matter of deciding who's better and who's worse, but I think those guys are right there in the same category with Tupac, Biggie, NWA, all these groups that we immortalize. I think another thing that's interesting too is that a lot of people tend to think that what NWA did, especially when we talk about "fuck the police," that it was just so prophetic and it was so visionary and etc. And you know, I mean, I can really say that it's okay to admit that NWA kind of might have screwed hip hop up a little bit. Not entirely, but they pushed out a lot of good artists. You know, that was the era of X Clan and Public Enemy and all that stuff, and that stuff just kind of got squashed. And I think that the black community would have been better off if X Clan, remember X Clan was rapping about being proud of being black, rapping about Africa and all these really empowering things about being black. You know, it would have been the world would have been a better place if X Clan had remained the number one group for 7 or 8 years. If Public Enemy had remained relevant all through the '90s and in the early to mid 2000s, the world would have been a better place. I don't know if the world was a better place because of NWA. I really don't. If you look at some of the things they were saying about women before that, nobody was really calling women bitches and hoes in music like that, and almost nobody would do it. Even Queen Latifah had the song "UNITY," where she was like, "Who you calling a bitch?" Right? Like you don't call me a bitch. You know, you don't call black women bitches. Well, NWA just made the word bitch just, you know, like saying the word and or but or he or she. I mean, it was about as common of a word as imaginable, and a lot of people I think were shocked by that. Some were offended by that. Some people just got used to that. Now women call each other bitches. Now women get mad if you say that it's wrong to call a woman a bitch. And I think that's wrong. I think that we really have to look at NWA in an honest framework. We have to just say, okay, you know, it's not entirely their fault. They were products of their environment, no question about it. But to hail them as some sort of visionaries for hip hop, people that made the world a better place. I don't buy that either. I don't think NWA made the world a better place. I think NWA, as extraordinary as their talent was, and the fact that they were able to go nationwide, totally underground, without almost any radio play. I mean, just amazing. I mean, astonishingly powerful. I mean, they were viral before virality was even a concept. Long before the internet. That they deserve credit for that, but the virus they were spreading was not a healthy virus, if that makes any sense. Um, you know, After that music came out, I think everybody wanted to be a gangster. Women were suddenly bitches and hoes all throughout hip hop. The Crips and Bloods and the gang warfare thing was spread all throughout the country. And again, you can't say that the music is the cause of all these things entirely, because we know that life and art imitate each other. But now you got little gangsters in the middle of freaking Iowa who ain't never bust a grape on nobody, who ain't never seen the street life, who ain't never seen thug life, who ain't never gone through anything even remotely tragic, but they want to be gangster, right? I mean, for the longest time, everybody was trying to be gangster, and I think that was just a horrible influence on all of us in the black community. So I hope this is taken in the spirit that it's intended. I'm not saying this as a person who hates NWA or a person who worships NWA. I'm just a guy who calls it like I see it. And what I really see with the NWA movie is that those who have issues with the misogyny have every right to be upset. I mean, Ice Cube, I think, had a song called "A Bitch Is a Bitch." I mean, just bitch, 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 bitch. And so the degree of disrespect for women, and it kind of spun over, because then Snoop was talking about, I don't love these hoes, right? And then other artists were like, oh, well, wait, we're supposed to disrespect women, and women like that too. They like it. They come to our concerts and give us money. If we disrespect them, then shit, I'm going to take the disrespect to another level. And now you get to the point where a lot of men, young men, never learn the basic fundamental respect for a woman. And also, even worse, women don't learn the basics of fundamental respect for themselves and for each other. So it kind of becomes this ugly cycle that's just not healthy for people. So I'm going to watch the NWA movie, and I'm going to watch it honestly for selfish reasons, because, well, for a couple reasons. One, because I like to be in tune with what young people are doing, just so I can make sure that when I talk to them, I'm not talking crazy. But then number two, it does bring back nostalgia for me. Like it makes me think about my teenage years, my early college years. The music had a type of energy and a lot of anger to it that reflected the anger I felt as a black man. And so that's probably why I resonated with that music. And I don't think that everybody is. I don't think things are black or white. Like I don't. When I look at Ice Cube, I don't see him as a good person or a bad person. I saw what Khalid Abdul Muhammad said about him, and it wasn't favorable. I think Ice Cube does. He's sucked up to some Jews and whatnot to be able to make these movies, but at the same time, Ice Cube is a brilliant man. You can't take that away from him. And the thing is, sometimes you just got to pick your battles. You got to pick your strategy, and it seems to have worked for Ice Cube. But I don't think we should get to a point where we think Ice Cube and NWA and all them, and Dr. Dre, that these are all perfect people. They're not. Dr. Dre, in my opinion, for example, I thought it was absolutely ridiculous when he gave all that money to USC, which was a school that didn't even need it. But you from Compton, you literally could make Compton your life project, where you literally every penny of charity you do goes to your hood in Compton, because they need it. They really need it. And I know he paid a little bit of money. He's gonna give the proceeds from his latest album and all that. That album ain't gonna make that much money. It's gonna make a little bit of money, maybe a few $100,000, maybe a million. But if you're worth $800 million or whatever you're worth, $1 million is not. I mean, that's about the amount of interest he probably makes in about 2 weeks, maybe something like that. So let's stop thinking that just because an artist does a little bit of charity, that somehow they've saved the world. They ain't done shit. If it's a fraction, if it's a penny out of your bank account, that doesn't really mean anything. Do something real. Be as committed to helping your community as you are to helping yourself and to making your records. When you do that, then I'll be impressed. When you're giving as much to your people as you're giving to these white folks and to your hip hop label, then I'll be impressed, right? But if you make 100 million over here and then give 100,000 over there, that's not really that much charity. That's not really a big deal. That's like me giving, $20 to something and saying, "See, I told you I support them." No, no, no. Giving is a little bit deeper than that. And when it comes to the people from which you came, you owe them everything. Compton is as troubled as that place is, as complex as that place is. Compton is a birthplace of one of the most powerful one of the most powerful forms of music known to man. There are many brilliant people to come out of that place. So, in my opinion, whenever we're seeing these young children deal with this trauma, being murdered in the street, being incarcerated in droves, our hearts should just melt, because every time somebody dies, every time somebody gets sent away to jail, that's a future that has been aborted. One of my good friends, and I'll say this and I'm done. One of my good friends, Dominique Reese, is out of South Central, and she said, yeah, when Dominique was the first person out of I think she went to Crenshaw High. She was the first person out of her school to go to Princeton, and she said, when I graduated, she said, uh, basically a lot of the girls went to college. Some of the girls went to college. A lot of the boys went to prison, and a lot of the boys were dead. And I think she said her own boyfriend had gone to prison as well. So, but again, I didn't mean to even tell too much of her business. I apologize, Dominic, if you see this. But my point there is that there's real trauma happening there, and I just think that, if given that you've profited so much from this community, Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, all these dudes, I mean, they owe this community everything. And so when you over giving your money to these white people that are lifting you up and making you to a propped up Negro, I hope that you'll take the time to give at least half of that to other black people and to your community. That's who deserves your money. So don't try to get straight out of Compton. You need to be going straight back to Compton so that you can help the people from which you came. That's all I really want to say. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. Please take care. God bless. I'm gone. Peace.